Hi, and welcome to SMALLab, an embodied learning environment. My name is David, and today I'll be walking you through a scenario that's called the quadrilateral constructor. The goal of this scenario is for students to develop a deeper understanding of quadrilaterals and the properties that define different kinds of quadrilateral shapes. So I'd like to walk through now the different components in the scenario to give you a sense of what's involved. So along each of the edges here, we see that there are different names for quadrilaterals, and students can use these to annotate the shapes that they see in the main part of the space. Along the edge, we also have different labels that can be used to annotate the shapes, saying that lines are parallel, congruent, or perpendicular. In the middle of the space, we have the quadrilateral construction space, and there are two different controllers that are used to place line segments in the space, and then a third controller that's used both to annotate the shapes, annotate the different kinds of labels, and it can also be used to manipulate line segments once they've been placed in the space. So the first phase of this scenario is for students to actually be able to use the wands in order to create a set of line segments that create a quadrilateral shape. So we're going to do that now, which if you guys notice as you move the different wands, that we actually see a label here that's showing us in meters the length of that segment that they're creating. And let's create a rectangle shape to start. So once they've got it in place, I'll actually press the button to construct the first segment. So we hear a sound that's going to indicate that we've dropped that segment, and then as you guys move, you'll see that you don't any longer have control over that. Great. So just as you're doing, let's create this vertex here, maybe lengthen it out a little bit longer. Notice that we're getting this length reading here, 1.44 meters. When you've got it in place, I'll go ahead and drop that again. Good. Let's create another segment. Great. So they can look at matching the lengths as they're doing this using different kinds of resources that are shown in the space, and we'll drop that segment. All right, let's drop the fourth one. Great. And we drop that. And now we see as you move away from that that we have a quadrilateral shape here. Once we've created a quadrilateral shape, now we can begin another phase, which is to annotate the different kinds of features of this shape. As you can see here, I've already labeled that these two lines are parallel to one another. Now what I'd like to do is think about these two lines and determine whether they're congruent, and if they are, to label them as such. If you guys don't mind, can you show me what the length of that segment is? So it looks like it's at 0.8 meters. And try this one, which is also 0.8 meters. So I've been able to verify using this tool that indeed they are congruent. So I'll hover over the shape, bring it to the segment, and lower it to place the annotation. And I want to do the same over here. As you can imagine, in the context of a whole class session, students around the space will be thinking critically about the shapes that are being created, and often we can invite them into this space in order to make these kinds of annotations, often coaching their teammates as they do this. Having made these annotations, now I'd like to show that these two line segments are also congruent. What I can do in order to show that is I can actually make a double congruent sign by dragging two of these onto that line segment, and then doing the same on the other. Now that we've created a shape and a set of annotations, we can go through and determine what kind of quadrilateral we have. So the first thing is that I know I have four sides, so I can demonstrate that I have a quadrilateral. The idea here is for students to make their annotations about the kinds of shape that this could be, and to think aloud as they do so. So looking at a rhombus, I know this isn't a rhombus because all four angles are perpendicular, 90 degrees. So looking now at a rectangle, I know I have two pairs of congruent sides, so I do want to check the rectangle shape. I know in this case it's not a square because not all sides are congruent. We can now look at parallelogram, and I know that I have two pairs of parallel sides, and so I do want to check parallelogram. Another possibility with this scenario is that students can use the line segment tool to create diagonals as they build a quadrilateral shape. So here we'll create a kite. Again, I'm using the button in order to place segments in this space. Once we've laid segments in this space, we can also use the manipulation tool in order to change them. So here we notice but we don't quite have the right lineup with our segments. And I'm going to grab that end of the segment and then drop it down to place it, here manipulating the kite shape itself. Again, I hover over the endpoint, and then I have control over the endpoint. I can bring it to the correct spot and lower the wand to place it. We have our kite quadrilateral, and I've made a set of annotations about which lines are congruent. And I can also make an annotation about the fact that in this case, the diagonals are perpendicular.